Chapter 296. Here you go, Angelica. With that said, Wu Ming put his hand on Angelica's stomach. Wu Ming exerted force, and Angelica's whole body glowed. Ah! The pain of being stripped of her class card made Angelica moan. When the light dissipated, Angelica, who was bound by enkidu and vines, changed her clothes into a set of home clothes. And Wu Ming had an extra card in his hand. Archer, Archer. Wu Ming read the name on the class card. This class card was Gilgamesh's upper body. Wu Ming threw it behind him indifferently, and a small hand caught the card. The owner of the hand was young Gil, who had already come down from the floating platform in the sky. You've really helped me a lot, teacher. Young Gil looked at the class card in his hand happily. Okay, I've found your upper body for you. Be a good audience and watch this farce. Wu Ming knew his disciple well. Once he regained his real body, it was hard to say what would happen. Yes, I didn't want to participate this time. I'm still very interested in the comedy between teacher and clowns. You have a bad taste. Wu Ming raised his eyebrows. By the way, what are you going to do with this woman? Young Gil pointed at Angelica with interest. In this regard, Wu Ming fell into silence. On the other side, Shiro Amiya and Beatrice. Hee. Don't run, come and fight with me. Beatrice was like a psychopath, madly roaring at Shiro Amiya, laughing, and constantly smashing Mjolnir in her hand at Shiro Amiya. I'm sorry, but I know my limits. If I'm hit by this hammer, I'll be finished. Shiro Amiya jumped, dodging the incoming giant hammer and the surging lightning on the giant hammer. Hee-ha-ha-ha. Then why don't you just obediently die? However, Beatrice did not care about Shiro Amiya at all. She just kept attacking Shiro Amiya. TSK, this power isn't something that a simple person can possess. Wei Gong Sherlang once again dodged a lightning strike by a hair's breadth, and said while panting heavily. However, the user is a berserker. Beatrice was now like a berserker. She laughed wildly and controlled the Mjolnir in her hand to attack crazily. If that's the case, then I'll kill him in one strike. Instantly, Shiro Amiya's eyes turned cold. Race on, projection begin. Shiro Amiya's feet suddenly stopped, and he quickly turned and ran toward Beatrice. You finally stopped running? Then go to hell. Beatrice looked at Shiro Amiya, laughed, raised the Mjolnir, and began to charge. Immediately, Shiro Amiya waved his hand, and blue lines lit up on his body. Several noble phantoms appeared out of thin air and shot toward Beatrice. It's completely useless. Beatrice smirked as she swung the Mjolnir that was still charged with electricity down on the ground. Several noble phantoms made by Shiro Amiya were directly smashed and disappeared. Race on, projection begin. In an instant, Wei Gong Shiro raised one of his hands, and a gigantic sword that was as tall as the heavens and the earth was projected. Is it a Galima? Beatrice recognized the huge weapon at a glance. Beatrice once saw it in Angelica's treasure house. That weapon was one of the two swords held by Zabarba, the god of war in Mesopotamia. It was a noble phantasm called Igia Lima, the green horizon of 1,000 mountains. There's one in Angelica's treasury as well. But it seems like yours is just a fake that imitates its appearance. Beatrice did not retreat but went forward and slammed the Mjolnir in her hand on the fake Igalama. Boom! Crack! Igalama and Mjolnir collided with each other, and with a cracking sound, Igalama was directly smashed by Mjolnir. Ha 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 ha, it's great! That's great! Beatrice laughed maniacally as she stood on the mountain-slicing sword that was stabbed into the ground. Beatrice, who was laughing, suddenly found that Shiro Amiya was gone. Are you going to play hide-and-seek this time? Hee, Beatrice said with a smile. It's the mouse that eats the cat. Shiro Amiya's voice came from behind Beatrice. Beatrice turned her head and saw Shiro Amiya holding a black bow with a strange spiral arrow on it. The moment Beatrice turned her head, Shiro Amiya let go of the bowstring. Boom! The spiral sword exploded, and the flame buried Beatrice. The wind set off by the explosion blew Shiro Amiya's robe. It seemed that Beatrice had disappeared in the flame. However, Shiro Amiya did not let down his guard. Very good. That's it. Resist, and then be crushed under my feet. Beatrice rushed out of the flame, shouting excitedly, and her expression became more and more ferocious. Beatrice rushed directly to Shiro Amiya. Roajax, blazing 7 circles. Shiro Amiya opened the cherry blossom shield with one hand, blocking Beatrice's hammer attack. Although it seemed that the injury was not light, Beatrice became more and more courageous. She chased after Shiro Amiya and hit him all the way. Each petal was as thick as an ancient city wall. 7 petals. Looking at the rapidly decreasing petals, Shiro Amiya sighed again. You're really a berserker. You're really as difficult to deal with as a cockroach. You're the same. You're as difficult to deal with as a mouse. Although Beatrice said that, she did not stop her actions. Her Mjolnir kept hammering the 7 blazing rings, Roajax, madly. Boom! The last petal broke, and the cherry blossom shield in Shiro Amiya's hand was broken. Die! Beatrice's eyes flashed fiercely, and the lightning on Mjolnir suddenly exploded, carrying out a fatal blow. However, Shiro Amiya only projected a pair of black and white dual swords. Crane wings fall no, mind skill mount Tai, mind skill crossing the Yellow River, mind skill receiving heaven, 2 heroes share the same fate. The dual swords that were less than a meter long changed shape and became a pair of black and white dual swords that were more than a meter long like 2 wings. A few red lights flashed in the smoke behind Beatrice. Random, triple-linked crane wings triple combo. Slash! The sound of the blade cutting through flesh was heard. 2 pairs of ferocious wing blades, together with the pair of long swords in Shiro Amiya's hands, cut through Beatrice's body. Shiro Amiya used the smoke and flames of the explosion produced by the pseudo-spiraling sword to hide the other 2 pairs of Moi swords. When Beatrice was focused on Shiro Amiya and thought that she had won, he launched a sneak attack from behind and successfully took down Beatrice. Shiro Amiya's dual swords were on the neck of Beatrice, who was paralyzed on the ground and could not stand up, and said condescendingly, "Now you're a general, berserker." Chapter 297. The scene changed. Wuming looked at Angelica and thought carefully. Young Gil looked at Wuming and Angelica with interest. I originally wanted to kill her directly. At this moment, Wuming, who had been silent for a long time, spoke. Wuming did not lie. When Angelica and Beatrice came to Ilia's parallel world together, Wuming opened the inherent barrier with the idea of blasting them into pieces. Although he also did not want young Gil to obtain half of his body. As the saying goes, things are constantly changing. I've been abandoned by Lord Darius. Now, I'm an abandoned person. You can kill me or cut me up as you wish. Angelica looked at him. Oh, you're quite self-aware. Young Gil's smile became even brighter. Obviously, young Gil had also seen through Angelica's identity as an abandoned person. Wuming was the same. It would be better to say that Wuming discovered that Angelica was an abandoned person earlier than young Gil. It was Darius's order to go to the parallel world to capture Mei Yu. However, only Angelica and Beatrice were sent to capture her. After all, Darius had several new puppet subordinates by his side. There was no need to send out Angelica, who had Gilgamesh's card, and Beatrice, who was suspected to have Thor's card. Most importantly, Wuming did not believe that Darius did not guess that Wuming would be by Mei Yu's side. Knowing that Wuming was there, Darius still sent a team of only 2 people to the parallel world. It was obvious that these 2 were already dispensable abandoned people. Well, since you've already accepted your fate, then stay here obediently. After everything is over, I'll deal with you. Wuming said simply, then controlled the vines and Enkidu to release Angelica. As for Angelica, she stood there obediently as if she was a captive, not moving at all. Seeing this scene, Wuming frowned in disgust. Of course, he did not hate Angelica, but he hated Ainsworth's displacement magic. Angelica's identity was already known. She was Julian's sister, the eldest daughter of the Ainsworth family. She died when Black Mud was released by Darius and was then replaced by the displacement magic. Unlike the puppet that Wuming saw before, it was full of emotions and selfishness like Atlam. Instead, it was a puppet that took the master's orders as the highest order. On the other hand, the puppets that Tong Ying and Bazette fought against were of a lower level. They were emotionless, irrational, and selfless. It could be said that they were purely used for the class card to possess them and act as combat power. Tricks that played with souls, no matter which world it was in, would be punished by the heavens. Zelik once talked to Wuming that the Ainsworth family had something to do with the crisis of the world's destruction. In addition, Darius was the ancestor of the Ainsworth family, and he lived to this day. Wuming didn't believe that he had no ulterior motives. And such a family that played with souls, even if the descendants wanted to change, it was already impossible. Julian, who was almost completely replaced, was the result. Aria's father, sister, and everyone in his family had all died in the disaster that had happened almost 6 years ago. It was also during that disaster that Julian began to be replaced by Darius. As for the so-called Erica Ainsworth, she was of a higher level than Darius. Wuming suspected that if Zelik didn't save the world, the restraints would probably send people to destroy the Ainsworth family. Wuming shook his head helplessly. If you can, try to make yourself smile. Then, Wuming walked in the direction of Shiro Amiya and the others. Angelica was stunned. She touched her face. Smile, huh? Young Gil looked at the puppet and shook his head. As expected, there will be a day when you get tired of toys. Then, young Gil followed Wuming's footsteps. Only Angelica, who was ordered to stay put, stayed on the spot alone. Narer later to arrive first. Bazette abruptly used his fist to push out the dagger that had revealed its true form. Flagalak, slash of the war god. Thud. This was the sound of the exhausted backlight sword falling to the ground. Plop. This was the sound of the puppet opposite Bazette who used the class card falling to the ground. At this point, the class card users who surrounded Bazette and Sakura Madu were all killed. This should be all the enemies. Bazette moved his body that was a little stiff from using the backlight sword too many times. Yes, Miss Bazette. I'm also done here. Sakura Madu walked over from the side and said politely. Looking at the wreckage of the backlight sword on the ground, even the usually serious Bazette's mouth twitched. Almost all the backlight swords in my inventory were used up. Bazette comforted himself, but it was worth it after all. It wasn't a loss. These people have become puppets without any sense of self. It's so sad. Sakura Madu looked at the simple automatons on the ground and said sadly. However, because they don't have any sense of self, we can turn the tide under the attack of so many enemies. Bazette tidied up his clothes and picked up the cylinder that was used to store the backlight sword. Now, the cylinder was completely empty. No matter what, there were multiple servants. Even if Bazette could use the backlight sword to offset a servant's noble phantasm, facing many servants, Bazette couldn't use several backlight swords at the same time. If these servants used their noble phantasm at the beginning, Bazette and Sakura Madu might really die here. That's right. I hope these people's souls can go smoothly and not be used by bad people. Sakura Madu prayed. At this time, Shiro Amiya came to Sakura Madu's side. How is it, Sakura? Is it over? Shiro Amiya carried a red-haired loli who was unconscious and held a berserker class card in his hand. Yes, Senpai also defeated the enemy. Are you injured? Sakura Madu asked Shiro Amiya with concern. Shiro Amiya shook his head. I'm fine, but this person was not injured by my fatal attack, so I directly knocked her out, and the class card came out. As he spoke, Wei Gongshi waved the rank card in his hand. In short, Senpai is fine. Sakura Madu's face under the mask showed a smile, looking at Shiro Amiya. Shiro Amiya was a little embarrassed, and his cheeks were red. Is everyone okay? At this time, Wuming came. We're fine. Bazette looked at the black mud and steel battle that was still going on in the distance and said, Oniai-sama. Sakura Madu bowed to Wuming. It was obvious that Sakura Madu was not injured. Brother. Shiro Amiya took the red-haired loli and the class card in his hand in front of Wuming. Sure enough, she is the same as Angelica, a non-degraded version of the class card. Wuming took the class card and then looked at the unconscious Beatrice. Just when Wuming wanted to say something, the virtual screen from Shuasuke's residence suddenly appeared. Rin and Osaka's slightly anxious face appeared. Wuming. Hurry up and leave that place. I've detected a large amount of magic power condensing here. Chapter 298. Wuming and the others set off, while Rin Enbin and the others entered the control room. Rin Enbin and Luvia stood in front of the control room with their arms crossed, while Luvia stood elegantly in front of the control room. Neither of them spoke. Collis floated between the two, waiting helplessly for them to move. Ms. Rin, Ms. Luvia, please hurry into the control room. Master needs backup. Collis' cold voice sounded. Yeah, you're right. Wuming needs my backup. Rin Enbin proudly flipped her twin ponytails. What a joke, Rin Enbin. I'm afraid that you don't even know how to activate it. What if you press the wrong button? Wouldn't Wuming's magic workshop be destroyed? Luvia looked at Rin provocatively. Don't worry, I'm very honest. I'm not like some blonde girl who only knows how to show off. Rin Enbin and Luvia looked at each other. It was as if sparks were flying between them. The battle between their gazes was abnormally intense. Humph. I won't argue with you today. Rin Enbin finished speaking and walked into the control room. I should be the one saying that. Luvia caught up with Rin Enbin and walked into the control room together. However, the control room's door couldn't accommodate the two of them at the same time. Thus, the awkward situation of the two of them being stuck in the middle of the door was created. Get out of my way. You're the one. You barbaric monkey. The two of them were like contestants in a competition. They pressed their palms against each other's palms. Their crazed faces were pressed tightly against each other. Collis was silent. A pair of wings grew out of her dragon horn headwear. Smack. Smack. Collis retracted her wings and spoke elegantly. Ladies, please enter the control room in an orderly manner. I was sent by Master to supervise the two of you. If you don't listen, I have the right to continue my actions. Rin Enbin and Luvia covered their swollen faces with tears in their eyes. How dare you hit my face? Really, how can you treat ladies like this? Rin Enosaka and Luvia protested. In the blink of an eye, Kelly spread out her wings. Luvia, you go in first. No. Ling, you go first. The moment they saw the pair of wings, the two of them became like a loving family and began to be courteous to each other. Please hurry up. Collis's voice was mixed with a trace of annoyance. This time, Rin Enosaka and Luvia stopped being modest and entered the control room in an orderly manner. Collis followed him in the air. Coincidentally, this scene was seen by Ilya, Blackie, and Mei Yu, who had entered the Shuayu residence with curiosity. Unexpectedly, I feel that Miss Collis is very dignified. She doesn't look like a ruby at all. Ilya looked at the ruby floating beside her with disdain. Mei Yu and Little Hay nodded in agreement. Even Sapphire nodded humanely after a moment of silence. Wait, what do you mean you don't look like me at all? I'm a negative teaching material. Also, forget about Mei Yu and Little Hay. Little Blue actually bullied me with Ilya. Woo! After saying that, Ruby turned around like a human and let out a sobbing sound. Sister, please be more reserved. Don't be so embarrassing. Sapphire comforted her with a tone of, it's so troublesome to have a childish solution. Also, Senior Emerald is indeed more dignified than you. As expected of Master Wuming's exclusive magic attire. She's as reliable as Master Wuming. This time, it was Ilya's turn to be embarrassed. I feel like Sapphire means that I, the one with the ruby, am unreliable. Are we really going in? Mei Yu raised her hand and asked. Mei Yu, Ilya, and Little Hay came here to see the magic workshop's activation. Of course, Mei Yu was instigated by Little Hay and Ilya. Of course we're going in. Otherwise, why are we here? Little Hay waved her hand, expressing helplessness. Yes, Mei Yu, since we're here, I think it should be fine for us to go in and take a look. Ilya said embarrassedly. But, the control room is the core of Brother Wuming's magic workshop. Even if Sister Ling and Sister Luvia went in, they were accompanied by Collis. The last visit was also accompanied by Brother Wuming. It's not good for us to go in like this. Mei Yu felt that Wuming didn't tell Mei Yu and others about the existence of the control room because of the importance of the control room. So, with her two little friends' instigation, Mei Yu still felt a little nervous. It's alright since Big Brother was able to let Ling and Luvia, these two rash brats, into the control room, I'm sure he'll be on guard against them. We're not like them, not to mention, isn't Kelly still inside? While speaking, Xiao Hei pushed Mio and pushed her towards the control room. I know, don't push me. Mei Yu said with a red face. At this time, the Shuayu residence shook. Mei Yu, Little Hay, do you feel the vibration here? Ilya, who was standing in the same place, said in detail. It must be said that although Ilya was very rash and sometimes like an idiot, she was often the first to discover something. Last time when Bazette attacked Livia's house, it was Ilya who first noticed the vibration and felt that something was wrong. Only then did Ilya pull little Hay to Livia's house. Is there? I didn't feel it. Me too. Little Hay and Mayu stopped and shook their heads. At this time, rumble. The Shuayu residence shook violently as if there was a great earthquake. What? What happened? What's going on? Earthquake. Ilya, Little Hay, and Mayu were all shaken by this great vibration and fell to the ground. Ling and Livia must have done something in the control room. Little Hay made a prompt decision. He immediately got up and rushed toward the control room. Wait. Little Hay. Ilya called out to Little Hay and got up from the ground. Mayu did the same. She immediately got up and chased after Little Hay with Ilya. Ling, Livia, what are you doing? Little Hay rushed into the control room and started shouting. After shouting, Little Hay was stunned. Wait, Little Hay. Ilya caught up from behind. Then, Ilya and Mayu were also stunned. The control room that was originally like a laboratory was now shining with starlight as if it was a magical technology. Every instrument emitted a light that could penetrate one's heart. The twisted wand floated and emitted a 7-colored light. The simple and unadorned book emitted a dazzling light like the stars. Rin, Enbin and Livia were standing in front of the big screen in the center. Rin, Enbin and Livia were communicating with Wuming on the screen. When they saw Ilya and the others come in, they asked in confusion. Why did you come in? Chapter 299. Rin and Osaka and Livia stepped back, leaving Collis to talk to Wuming. Rin and Osaka and Livia greeted the three Lolas. Sister Rin, Sister Livia, what was the earthquake just now? Ilya asked shyly as she told them about the violent tremors that happened just now. It might be because Wuming and the others were fighting with the enemy, ahahaha. That's right, looks like the enemy is very strong, ahaha. Rin and Osaka and Livia pretended to be calm as they laughed. It's suspicious. Little Black stared at Rin and Osaka and Livia with a scrutinizing gaze. Then Little Black retracted his gaze. Well, I'll trust you this time. Rin and Osaka and Livia, who pretended to be calm, secretly let out a sigh of relief. At this time, the conversation between Collis and Wuming entered their ears. We're on our way to your location and will arrive in about 5 minutes. Collis reported to Wuming. Okay, I understand. Collis, remember to keep an eye on these two and don't let them cause any trouble. Yes, Master. Collis immediately turned off the communication. The dragon horn headdress turned around. Even though it didn't have eyes, Collis's intimidating gaze made Rin and Osaka and Livia feel a chill. Then, Collis opened her mouth. Although due to Miss Rin and Miss Livia's improper operation, the workshop isn't operating normally. But for now, the lunar temple is operating normally. Then, Collis floated to the central platform and sat down steadily. Miss Rin and Miss Livia, please go to your designated location. The lunar temple is moving towards Master. Yes. Rin and Osaka and Livia said with enthusiasm and immediately got to work. Miss Collis is still quite dignified. Seeing this scene, Ilya once again expressed her opinion. By the way, how is the thing moving towards Big Brother moving? Fly or teleport? Xiao He asked with great interest. Regarding this, Miss Chloe can go to the control room and take a look through the window. Collis' voice sounded. With puzzled expressions, Blackie, Mayu, and Ilya left the control room. As soon as they stepped out of the control room, the three of them found that the original Japanese-style structure of the Shuasuki residence had changed into a futuristic blue color. This is? Ilya's heart was filled with shock. There's a window over there. Xiao He pointed somewhere. Although it had become sci-fi, the internal structure of the Shuayu residence had not changed much. Little Black casually found a window and opened it. Then, he led Mayu and Ilya to lie on it and look outside. What the three of them saw was a misty sky and a house the size of a toy on the ground. At this moment, the Shuayu residence had changed from its original square residence to an ancient temple that resembled an airship. As for the insignificant changes to the internal structure, It could only be attributed to spatial technology. Is it flying? Blackie, Ilya, and Mayu were all shocked. Is this what Big Brother meant by being able to fly? It's really amazing. Ilya had a look of excitement. What do you guys think? Mayu. Blackie. Yeah. Mayu said indifferently to express her agreement. Moreover, Mayu's eyes that were filled with pleasant surprise showed that Mayu's heart was not calm. At this moment, Blackie pointed somewhere below. Mayu and Ilya looked over. It was at the side of Winterwood City. There was a huge crater. From the center, a large area of black soil and a large area of golden soil surrounded the black soil covered the huge crater. That's not black soil, but black mud. Mayu looked at these things and said thoughtfully. Although Mayu had never seen it before, Wuming had once told Mayu stories about the battle between Wuming and Ainsworth. Through her own judgment, coupled with her high-altitude vision, Mayu was able to guess that it was black mud. It really seems to be black mud. Is this the black mud that Big Brother said absolutely cannot be touched? Ilya leaned forward and said while looking into the huge crater. Those fighting with Big Brother's iron golem should be the black mud followers that Big Brother mentioned. Blackie pointed at the indistinct figure that was fighting with the iron golem at the intersection of the black mud and golden soil. Brother Wuming and the others are also there. Mayu saw Wuming, Shiro Amiya, and the others who had defeated the enemy and stood together. At this moment, the originally open window suddenly closed. Ha! This startled the three of them. Maybe something happened. Let's go to the control room and take a look. Blackie said and took the lead to run to the control room. As soon as they entered the control room, Ilya and the others heard Rin Enbin's voice. Wuming, you guys quickly leave there. A large amount of magic is being detected here. The screen in front of Rin Enbin showed the image of Wuming and the others. Although Rin Enbin said so, Wuming shook his head. There's no need. After that, Wuming turned his head and looked at the center of the crater. In the center of the crater, where Darius had disappeared, there was something strange. The black mud followers that were about to win suddenly stopped and turned into black mud and merged into the black mud on the ground. Like a tsunami, black mud burst out from the center of the crater and spread out at an astonishing speed towards the surroundings of the crater. It was estimated that it would take a few seconds to return to Wuming. This feeling. What is this? Ilya looked at the black mud through the screen and felt the trembling in her soul. Not only Ilya, but also Blackie, Mayu, Rin Enbin, Luvia, and the others felt the malice from their soul. Rin Enbin and the others began to tremble through the screen, not to mention Shiro Amiya and the others who were at the scene. Wuming stretched out his hand and Enkidu appeared and tied up Shiro Amiya and the others. Then, Wuming took them into the air. Rin, use the teleportation device to retrieve Shiro and the others. Wuming looked at the screen floating beside him and said to Rin Enbin. As for the young Gil, Wuming didn't see him before. Rin Enbin nodded and shouted to Luvia on the other side. Luvia! Understood. Then, a small opening opened at the bottom of the lunar temple that was close to the big hole. A device similar to a signal receiver extended out. The device lit up. At the same time, Shiro Amiya and the others' bodies also lit up. In an instant, Shiro Amiya and the others disappeared. They had been taken back by the lunar temple. Big Brother, is it really okay to leave one person behind? Shiro Amiya, who was teleported to the control room, quickly came in front of the screen and said to Wuming in a worried tone. Ilya and the others were also very worried. Especially Mayu, she was about to cry. In comparison, this thing could make one's soul tremble. Don't worry, this black mud can't do anything to me. Wuming said gently and told Mayu and the others not to worry. Gradually, the remaining iron golems on the battlefield were swallowed up. Flying in the air, Wuming saw Angelica, who was still in a daze. Heaven Lock, Enkidu. Extended and silent cry pulled Angelica, who was about to be touched by the black mud, up. At this point, the black mud completely covered the big hole and swallowed all the iron golems. Chapter 300. Wuming helplessly hugged Angelica, who was dragged up by the Heaven Lock. I told you to stay put, and you really stayed put. Don't you know how to move when danger comes? However, Angelica calmly looked at Wuming. As a puppet, I have to follow orders. Looking at Angelica's serious and stubborn eyes, he felt even more helpless. Rin, help me teleport her back to the lunar temple. Wu Ming decisively said to the screen that was still open. Are you sure? Rin Enbin was confused. Although Rin Enbin had never seen Angelica before, she was undoubtedly an enemy. She has already died once, in Mount Yuzong. I killed her. There is no need to kill her a second time. Then, Wu Ming looked at Beatrice, who was thrown to the side by Shiro Amiya. When Wu Ming tied up Shiro Amiya and the others with Heavenlock Enkidu, Shiro Amiya grabbed Beatrice. Even Beatrice was taken back to the control room by the lunar temple. Even Shiro didn't kill anyone. Do I look like someone who would kill innocent people? Rin Enbin smiled awkwardly as he complained in his mind. I don't know who said that he had already killed the other party once. Yes, I understand. Rin Enbin sighed and nodded. A moment later, Angelica's body began to glow, and she was obediently teleported to the lunar temple. Then with this, there will be no more restraints. Wu Ming stretched his arms and legs. The reason why everyone was teleported to the lunar temple was to prevent them from interfering with Wu Ming. Once again, Wu Ming didn't want to take over the power of others. Back then, Wu Ming planned to attack Darius' headquarters alone. After obtaining the power of a god, Wu Ming, who reached the root of his hometown, had the ability to do so. Well then, have you come out, Darius? After Wu Ming shouted, Darius's laughter came from the replacement space in the center of the big pit. Ha ha ha, as expected of the legendary dragon, Lord Hyunryong, to be able to defeat all of my dolls. After saying that, Darius walked out of the hidden space and revealed himself. However, Darius was holding a little girl's hand. The black mud was produced from the little girl's body. Wu Ming couldn't help but frown. This girl was none other than the friend that Mei Yu had happily introduced to Wu Ming. Erica? Mei Yu exclaimed in surprise when she saw this scene through the screen that had yet to be turned off. No matter what, Erica was someone who wanted to befriend Mei Yu. Even if they had become enemies for some unknown reason, Mei Yu still couldn't help but worry about Erica. What's more, Erica's eyes were lifeless at the moment, like a dolls. That's what you want to say, Lord Hyunryong. Darius pretended to be elegant, although this still made Wu Ming nauseous. Wu Ming didn't say anything, but his piercing gaze still told Darius. However, Darius continued his disgusting elegant speech as if he didn't see Wu Ming's cold eyes. Given everything by everyone, a body made of God's clay, a magic box with disaster and hope since birth, this is her name. Pandora, Wu Ming said Erica's real name. Ever since Wu Ming saw Pandora in school, Wu Ming had already seen through, guessed Erica's true identity. She was wrapped in endless darkness, but at the core, there was a glimmer of light. Coupled with the faint aura of a god's generation, Wu Ming wasn't 100% sure at first, but after Darius' speech, Wu Ming was 100% sure. Erica Ainsworth's true identity was Pandora, the magic box that contained countless disasters created by the gods in the place of the gods, the sorceress that made people sigh with pity. Now, I've finally opened Pandora's box. Ha 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 ha. It was as if Darius had realized his lifelong wish. He laughed with all his strength, and kept on laughing. Hearing this laughter and seeing this scene, Mei Yu, whose soul was trembling due to the influence of the black soil, became even more afraid. She took 2 shaky steps back. No. Erica. However, 2 hands pressed down on Mei Yu's back. The warmth from the palms caused Mei Yu's trembling body to stop. Mei Yu turned around and saw a pair of similar faces. Ilya. Little Black. Mei Yu said in a daze. Don't be afraid, Mei Yu. Ilya looked at Mei Yu with an unusually firm gaze. You still have us here. Little Black smiled mischievously. That's right. Rin and Osaka adjusted the glasses that he had put on at some point. Everyone is here, Mei Yu. Luvia looked at Mei Yu with a gentle smile that wasn't arrogant. Shiro Amiya and Sakura Madu smiled at Mei Yu. Although Bazette didn't smile and had a serious expression, Mei Yu saw encouragement in his calm gaze. Everyone. Seeing that everyone's souls were no longer trembling, Mei Yu was touched. Mei Yu, Sama. Please don't be discouraged. Sapphire flew into Mei Yu's hands at the right time. Sapphire. I understand. Mei Yu hugged Sapphire and nodded at everyone. Perfect. Perfect. Next, It's time to fight the great demon king. Ruby suddenly shouted in a high-pitched voice. Bam! Instantly, a fist sent Ruby flying. You bastard, can't you just be quiet? Rin and Osaka maintained his punching posture and said in a slightly annoyed tone. Protest. Violent protest. Ruby, who was fine, flew back and protested Rin Osaka beside Ilya. Looks like you're itching for a beating, Ruby. Hey. Rin and Osaka, you're finally acting like a lady. Can't you be more obedient? What did you say? I've always been a lady, okay? Seriously, why are you two fighting again? Sister too, doesn't she know how to read the atmosphere? Mama, everyone, stop fighting. Senpai, you're not dignified at all. That's why, I'm really unlucky to be betrayed by the higher-ups. I can't believe that I'm working with you guys now. Mei Yu smiled happily as she looked at the people who were playing around. While inadvertently paying attention to the big screen, Mei Yu saw that Wu Ming was looking at her gently without relaxing for a moment. Feeling her beloved brother's encouraging gaze, Mei Yu nodded again. Collis sat on the main control platform and reported to Wu Ming. Master, the spirit world barrier has been successfully strengthened. Everyone's souls are no longer affected by the black mud. Well done, Collis. Yes, thank you for your praise. At this moment, Darius stopped laughing. Now, I don't need the Holy Grail anymore. You and the Holy Grail will be destroyed together. Hyunryong. Chapter 301. After Darius finished speaking, Erica, or rather Pandora, whose eyes had lost consciousness, erupted with black mud all over her body. The black mud came menacingly and swallowed Darius in an instant. Ha ha ha. Ha ha ha. The black mud that engulfed Darius began to condense into a black sphere. Inside the black sphere, Darius's wanton laughter could be heard. Immediately after, the pitch-black sphere began to vibrate, as if something was rushing out from the inside. The entire black sphere began to deform irregularly from the outside. However, how can I give you a chance? Instantly, the two stone plates in Wu Ming's heart lit up. I will deny the sky, deny the earth. The storm will destroy everything, and the rain will cover everything. With this supreme divine power, I will make everything in the world bow and kneel. Lightning! 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 I am the conqueror who can defeat 1,000 with a white, 10,000 with 1,000, and 10,000 with 10,000. Now, for me, who is on the side of justice, please shine brightly and bestow me with divine power. Wu Ming chanted 2 words in a row, and a raging storm enhanced by violent thunder and lightning appeared in his hand. With a violent destructive force that could destroy everything, it spun and hit the black sphere. However, Darius, who was swallowed by the black mud, was not unable to move. Kaboom! Countless black mud whips formed into countless black mud whips and bombarded the oncoming thunderstorm with violent explosions. With the supreme primordial power, I will crush all enemies and enmity from humans and demons. This is my violent incarnation. In an instant, Wu Ming added the aura of the origin dragon to the thunderstorm. The black mud whips that were in a stalemate were instantly broken by the thunderstorm and bombarded the black sphere. The pitch-black sphere let out what sounded like a miserable shriek. However, Rin Osaka and the others could not recognize this sound. They only felt that there was a sound. It should be said that they received the sound through their brains and not their ears. Everyone who heard this voice held their heads in pain. Wu Ming said to Collis after noticing Rin Enbin's strange behavior. Collis, cut off the call, set up the defensive barrier, and get away from here. Yes, master. Collis immediately cut off the sound transmission on both sides of the screen. Following that, Collis also set up a barrier in the Lunar Palace to prevent the voice from reaching everyone's minds. She then operated the Lunar Palace to leave this place. After they could no longer hear anything, their expressions gradually turned for the better. Will Wu Ming be all right by himself? The recovered Rin asked Collis. The others also looked at Collis with concern, waiting for her answer. Master's hypostasis is at the pinnacle of existence. His mind and soul won't be affected, Collis replied. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. What about his body? Mei Yu suddenly said. Brother Wu Ming's current body is not his original body. It's just the body of a servant. Can the enemy affect Brother Wuming's body? Answer me, Collis. Mei Yu looked at Collis with some seriousness. When Mei Yu said this, everyone reacted. Yes, Wuming said that he was not dead, and his body was not here. His current body was just the body of a servant, which was a body made of magical power. Although this body was extremely powerful for ordinary people, for an enemy of that level, I'm afraid. Mei Yu just looked at Kelly and didn't move a single step. If it's the body, the enemy can indeed affect the master. After a moment of silence, Collis answered Mei Yu's question. Then what is Brother Wuming's chance of winning? Mei Yu continued to ask. After all, Collis is a magic dress, and the calculation of the winning rate can naturally be analyzed. However, Collis did not speak again. According to the comparison of the current strength of Black Clay and Master Wuming, the result of the calculation is that the winning rate is only less than 5%. At this time, Sapphire, who had been serving Mei Yu, calculated the result. What? How can it be so low? Everyone was surprised. After all, it was Wuming who took the initiative to attack Ainsworth. As for the information, Wuming should have collected it. No matter how stupid Wuming was, he would not fight an unprepared war. Then isn't Big Brother in danger? Let's hurry and save him, Ilya said in a panic, and then ran out. However, Blackie pulled Ilya back. What are you doing, little Black? Don't stop me. Ilya, calm down. Even if you go, you won't be able to do anything. The difference in strength is too great. Little Black shook his head and said calmly. That's right, Ilya. Little Black is right. I don't have the confidence to defeat that sphere, Ruby said while floating beside Ilya. But, are we just going to watch Big Brother like this? Ilya shook her head sadly. Everyone did not speak, and they all became silent. Sapphire's calculation of the winning rate is only for the previous master. The current master is no longer the same as before. At this time, Collis suddenly spoke. What do you mean? Luvia took a step forward and looked at Collis. Actually, Master killed a god in another world and seized the god's power. As soon as Alice's words left her mouth, everyone was immediately stunned. But thinking about Wu Ming's identity, everyone was relieved. By the way, isn't Big Brother originally a god? Ilya, who did not understand anything, asked. Of course not, Ilya. Wu Ming appeared as a fantasy breed in Mesopotamia's mythology. Although he's a god in name, he's not the same as a god, Rin Enosaka said. Legend has it that Hyun Ryong is the son of the Mesopotamia's god of creation, Tiamat. He's the closest to Tiamat, and he's even the highest fantasy breed that surpasses Tiamat. In other words, Big Brother isn't a god, right? Little Black concluded. Actually, Master was born from the origin. What? Everyone was truly surprised by Alice's words. Unfortunately, Ilya still didn't understand. That. Ilya smiled embarrassedly and looked at everyone. The origin is the origin of all things, the cause and effect of all things, the origin of all things, the ultimate truth. Rin Enosaka's explanation left Ilya dumbfounded. Simply put, without the origin, there would be no world, and there would be no us, Little Black said simply. I see. But if that's the case, aren't we also born from the origin? Ilya was confused again. We're different. Although there would be no us without the origin, we weren't born from the origin. You can understand that we're the infinite differentiation of things born from the origin, and we're finally formed, Luvia explained. Wu Ming, on the other hand, was born directly from the origin. His status is comparable to the two great restraints. What's restraints? Ilya was embarrassed. She really did not know anything. Forget it. Next time, I'll give you a good all-around lesson. Rin Enosaka sighed and then shook his head helplessly. Actually, Master wasn't born from the origin of this world. Instead, he was born from a place of a higher status. A higher status? Everyone was confused. I feel so embarrassed. All right then, even Ilya wanted to cry. Even the others didn't know about this, so there was no way she would know about it. Chapter 302. Did you know that there are other worlds outside this world? Collis said in detail. It seems that you're not talking about parallel worlds. Rin and Osaka touched his chin and said thoughtfully. When Rin and Osaka said that, the others frowned thoughtfully. That was what people often did when they were thinking. What do you mean? Well, this time it was Ilya again. Ilya had already closed her eyes in fright. Ilya basically didn't understand what everyone was saying. Now, Ilya felt that she had lost her face to the limit. Everything in the world is born from the root, and naturally, there can be more than one world. And where do these different worlds come from? It's the place called the Great Root. The Great Root. Everyone repeated Colossus' words and thought carefully. Master is the existence born from the Great Root, the legendary dragon, the Root Dragon. Doesn't that mean that Wu Ming's level is higher than the suppression power? Rin and Osaka exclaimed. In short, that's right. After Colossus said that, everyone became nervous again. But Colossus paused for a moment after finishing her sentence. Master, as the Root Dragon, is not yet an adult, and because of some accident, Master did not absorb power from the Great Root after he was born, but was forced to leave the Great Root. Therefore, Master is not that powerful. Since Colossus became Wu Ming's noble phantasm, she became the owner of Wu Ming's existence, and she knew about Wu Ming's origin and life. Although most of it was from Wu Ming and Colossus when they were chatting. Wu Ming told Colossus that it was not a secret, and although it was not necessary to be too secretive, it was better not to tell others. For Rin and Osaka and the others, Colossus judged that they were already regarded as trustworthy partners, so she told them those things. Everyone also understood that Colossus trusted them by telling them such a mysterious secret. Naturally, they would not do anything to leak it. After a long period of silence, Wuxia suddenly spoke. The accident you mentioned, could it be related to the black mud? Wuxia is right. That's very possible. In comparison, Wu Ming is a little too obsessed with the black mud, Rin Enbin agreed. Everyone, including Mei Yu, couldn't help but ponder. Everyone, including Mei Yu, had an expression that said, it seems to be true. After all, no matter how one looked at it, Wu Ming was too obsessed with the black mud. Whether it was Wu Ming's understanding of the black mud or his expression when he talked about it as if he was facing a great enemy, it all showed how much he cared about the black mud. Although there were two reasons to eliminate Ainsworth to prevent them from being a threat to Mei Yu, and Wu Ming himself saying that how could he not return the favor after being beaten up? However, Wu Ming gave everyone the feeling that he was extremely obsessed with the black mud. Rin, if you think about it carefully, Big Brother is really too obsessed with the black mud. Little Black frowned. Everyone looked at Colossus. However, Colossus didn't intend to explain. Regarding this point, let's wait for Master to return victorious and let Master tell you personally. Then, Colossus fell into silence. Look! Ilya pointed at the screen that was still open and exclaimed in surprise. Everyone looked at the screen. On the screen, the black ball that was hit by Wu Ming's thunderstorm had turned into a headless giant. No, it was not headless. The head of the giant was Darius, but because it was too small, it was unclear. The scene shifted to the scene. Wu Ming looked at the black mud amalgamation that did not disappear after receiving Wu Ming's full force attack and turned into a giant. It turns out that all the disasters inside Pandora's box have been transformed into this black mud. Wu Ming clearly recognized that the black mud was the mud-like substance that Wu Ming saw inside the big root. Those mud-like substances seemed solid, but in fact, they were some gas. A large amount of black mist condensed into a mud-like black mist amalgamation. And now, the black mud giant in front of him was a new substance born from the combination of the black mist and the disaster substance in Pandora's box. It looked like some sticky black mud, but that black mud had the power of the root. The root was the origin of all things and naturally, it was also the origin of bad things and naturally, it also had bad power. However, that was not correct. There was no good or bad power. Only the person who used the power could distinguish the good from the bad. For example, if Wu Ming was a heinous criminal, then Wu Ming's power was the source of evil. However, Wu Ming, who chose to stand on the good side, had the power of light. It could only be said that the black mud was just a new substance produced by the fusion of countless disasters in Pandora's box and the unknown black mist with the power of the root. How is it, Hyun Ryong, this is the eternal, this is the root? Darius, who was at the top of the black mud giant, laughed crazily again. But soon, Darius stopped, as if he had changed from a neurotic to a sage. Oh right, I almost forgot, you were also born from there. How could you not know? I'm sorry, Root Dragon. Saying so, Darius smiled warmly. However, Wu Ming's eyes shrank sharply when he heard that sentence. But soon, Wu Ming was relieved. So that's how it is. Did the black mud tell you? Wu Ming immediately guessed how Darius knew his identity. The black mud had the power of the root. The black mud and Darius merged together, and the two resonated like symbiotic entities. The black mud knew Wu Ming's identity, although it did not have any self-consciousness. At least that was what Wu Ming saw at the moment. In this way, Darius, who had merged with the black mud, naturally knew Wu Ming's identity. However, this made Wu Ming begin to doubt whether these natural enemies of Wu Ming had self-consciousness. Not here, it did not mean that there were none in other worlds. At least, Wu Ming did not think that these actions, which came from the same root as Wu Ming, could not travel between worlds. It would be terrible if some people with high authority were to combine with the black mud. Don't worry, Lord Root Dragon, these black mud do not have self-consciousness, Darius suddenly said. Wu Ming frowned. Did Darius see through his thoughts? I saw your identity by accident when I was fusing with them. No one told me about it. On the surface, Wu Ming still had a frown on his face, but in fact, he was relieved in his heart. Although my wish has almost been fulfilled, Lord Root Dragon, I am a little interested in your birthplace, the Big Root. Wu Ming's frown became more obvious, and Darius became more abnormal. I don't know why, but I'm eager to return to home now, Root Dragon. Be devoured by me, and return to the Big Root with me. Chapter 303. After swearing his oath, Darius began his so-called devouring of Wu Ming. One after another, tentacle-like mud whips stretched out from the black mud all over the big holes, constantly attacking Wu Ming. Swish, swish, swish. Wu Ming dodged the tentacles that stretched out from the black mud on the ground one after another and looked at Darius, who had become neither human nor ghost. At this moment, Darius' lower body was in the headless mud giant's body, and his upper body was still wearing a thin black shirt. However, the skin on his exposed arms had begun to turn dark. The black substance covered Darius's body, forming a pattern that looked uncomfortable. Darius looked at Wu Ming with his black-red eyes. Okay, Dragon of Origin, don't resist anymore, quickly become one with me. After dodging a few more black mud whips, Wu Ming shook his head as he looked at Darius. It's hopeless, his soul has been completely eroded. Since many years ago, Darius had been using substitution magic to transfer his personality and soul to the next generation of his descendants. Since then, Darius's soul had become broken. So far, although Darius himself said that he had become eternal, Wu Ming, who was no stranger to this black mud, could easily see that Darius' soul had been completely eroded. It was completely eroded by the fusion of disaster and the black fog in Pandora's box. In that case, I don't need to show mercy, Wu Ming said indifferently. Ha! Ha 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 ha, show mercy? Are you kidding? Dragon of Origin. Darius began to laugh when he heard Wu Ming's words. If you're talking about the power of origin that restrains each other, then don't bother. With this Pandora's box in hand, these tools can be said to be endless. Do you understand? Darius's tone was abnormal. Moreover, like a French marshal, Darius's eyes began to bulge. I don't need to use up all of your black mud. Just capture the leader first. Wu Ming's golden eyes slowly lit up as he stared at Darius as if he was looking at a dead object. This gaze made Darius a little afraid. What a joke! Didn't you say you couldn't use your noble artifact? If you can summon your true body, then I might be a little afraid. But you can't summon your true body. You can't fight me at all. Darius almost roared to hide his fear. After dodging a few more black mud whips, Wu Ming closed his eyes. After this, Wu Ming was entangled by the black mud whips. It seems that you know that I have returned to my origin. Indeed, my true body can no longer be summoned by a mere servant, and other noble artifacts won't be of much use to you. To put it simply, this caster-magician profession won't work on you. But after that, Wu Ming's closed eyes suddenly opened, and Wu Ming's body exuded a golden holy light. At the same time, the huge dragon body that was sleeping inside the root suddenly emitted a special light from the dragon horn. It was also at this moment that some of the black mist inside the root rushed toward the light. In front of the dragon body, a space-time portal was opened, and the light broke the seal of the black mist and entered the space-time portal. Then, the space-time portal disappeared. The black mist that didn't succeed in organizing went crazy and began to wreak havoc on the huge dragon body. However, countless holy light and thunder burst out in an instant, vaporizing the black mud. The scene changed, and above Wuming, who was entangled, a space-time portal suddenly opened, and a huge golden beam of light descended in an instant, enveloping Wuming. The beam of light vaporized the black mud whips that entangled Wuming in an instant. I didn't say that my true body can't interfere with this servant's spiritual base. Like a god descending, Wuming's entire body was shrouded in the golden beam of light. His white clothes fluttered in the wind, and his golden hair fluttered wantonly. His two bright golden eyes shone even brighter. This is? Go to hell, go to hell, go to hell, go to hell. Darius was stunned at first, then roared wildly, driving the headless mud giant toward Wuming, and the black mud in the big pit quickly gathered in the direction of Wuming. The black mud hit the golden beam of light like waves, but the golden beam of light was like a stubborn stone on the coast, it couldn't be destroyed. Instead, the black mud that came into contact with the golden beam of light began to burn, emitting light smoke. An existence that specifically targets the malignant tumor of your world, servant, savior, descends here. Wuming, who was inside the beam of light, declared. When the beam of light disappeared, Wuming's outfit changed. The original short golden hair turned into short black hair, and the golden pupils turned into red pupils. However, the pure white clothes didn't change much, but there was a layer of golden lines on the white robe. The golden lines emitted light, illuminating the earth, looking extremely mysterious. Wuming's current appearance can be said to be exactly the same as his true body in human form. Then the black mud that was illuminated by the golden light began to emit green smoke, like a necrotic creature, shrinking and disappearing. This power. Could it be? Darius couldn't believe it. That's right, Darius. This power is the origin power. Wuming raised a hand, and a ball of golden particles attached to it. Do you think you can win like this? Don't forget, I have the origin power too. As he said that, Darius also raised his hand like Wuming. Black particles materialized and attached to it. Wuming naturally understood what Darius meant. The origin power did not have a fixed form. The two's powers were different only because Darius's origin power was attached to the black mud, while Wuming's origin power was a natural ability obtained by Wuming who was in the origin power. They were powers of the same origin, but they were also powers that countered each other. This was also the reason why Darius did not retreat even though he panicked. But, Darius, do you think I changed my spiritual base just for the origin power? Wuming smiled. Wuming used his true body in the Great Origin not just to change Castor's spiritual base into Savior's spiritual base. Haven't you noticed that the world is rejecting you now? Chapter 304. After Wuming said this, Darius also felt it. He now felt that the whole world was rejecting him. Just like material evolution, the earth, the sky, the flowers, the air, everything became harmful to Darius. It was not that it became something else, but it became an additional attribute, Darius poison. Just like how humans could not adapt to the air on Mars, Darius gradually began to be unable to adapt to the environment on Earth. What's going on? Darius felt his body begin to decay, and immediately began to wrap his body with the power of the source. It could only be said that the power of the source was somewhat of a cheat. Almost everything was restrained by it. After all, it was the origin of everything. And only the power of the source could restrain the power of the source. It's actually very simple. I just added an ability to my spiritual base. Wuming kindly explained to Darius. Nemesis of evil EX. Savior is righteous. Once identified by the Savior as evil, and their actions have an impact on the world, they will be counterattacked by the power of the world of the same level. The degree of the counterattack is enough to kill and cause fatal effects. You are the guy who absorbed all the disasters in Pandora's box. As an existence that brings disaster to the world will give you the same punishment. Wuming smiled. Don't be surprised. For me, who is in the source, changing the rank of a mere clone servant is not difficult. Moreover, with my identity, Even if I tell Gaia and Alea, I can change my rank at will. Just think of it as me cheating to save effort, the disaster of the world. Wu Ming's series of words stunned Darius. Then, Darius began to laugh. Ha 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 ha, covering his black and red eyes. Darius laughed wildly. Then, as long as I devour your clone, I will leave this world. That's it. Darius stared at Wu Ming as if he was looking at a delicacy. Then I will go to the source and devour your body. That way I will be a god. A true god. However, Wu Ming scoffed at Darius's words. If not for the fact that his main body still needed to draw power from the root, it would not have been difficult for Silent's main body to find the black mud that had fused with the black mist in Pandora's box, even if he could not easily find it. Moreover, if Darius really did go to the root, then he would definitely die without leaving a trace. With the Origin Dragon and the Great Origin, how could a mere world's calamity cause any trouble? Then, I'll let you die in peace, Darius. After saying that, Wu Ming began to chant the spirit words. All evildoers, be afraid of my power. Now, I will obtain the majesty of 10 mountains, the strength of 100 rivers, and the strength of 1,000 dragons. What the majestic me raises is the ferocious dragon mark. Instantly, Wu Ming's body emitted a bright light. Die! At that moment, Darius' attack arrived. A huge black mud palm instantly grabbed Wu Ming. Countless black mud that contained origin power surged toward Wu Ming from the black mud giant's arm that grabbed Wu Ming. But Wu Ming struggled to break the hand that grabbed him. Don't underestimate the power of the dragon seed. Dragons, no matter which country it was, or which myth it was, were all powerful existences. As the origin dragon, Wu Ming's main body was naturally powerful. Compared to being a spellcaster, Wu Ming was more suited to be a warrior. This was a God-given ability bestowed by Wu Ming's main body. A powerful body and a powerful spiritual base brought about unparalleled power. As for the dragon seed incarnation, it was purely to enhance Wu Ming's physical attributes. Whether it was strength, speed, durability, magic power, spirit power, resistance, etc., all of his attributes were increased. Coupled with a boundless origin power in his body, Wu Ming's contact with the black mud was as easy as cutting through paper with a sharp blade. I am the strongest and the one who holds all victory in my hands. No matter if it's a human or a demon, I am the one who defeats all enemies' hostility. I will defeat any enemy that stands in my way. As the words were uttered, a golden dragon-shaped giant that was the same size as the black mud giant appeared. Bang bang! The golden dragon-shaped giant threw 2 punches. The black mud giant was unable to defend against these mutually reinforcing attacks. The black mud giant's body was instantly shattered. It's not over yet. I won't lose. Darius roared, and the black mud giant that had been scattered instantly recovered. Immediately after, the black mud giant hugged the golden dragon-shaped giant. Countless black mud rushed toward the golden dragon-shaped giant. After all, the dragon-shaped giant was instantly dissolved. Wu Ming came out of the golden dragon-shaped giant's body before the black mud covered the golden dragon-shaped giant. Wu Ming looked at the disappearing golden dragon-shaped giant in the air and felt a little helpless. That's why this kind of mutual restraint is really a headache. It wasn't that Silent Wonder couldn't win. Rather, it was as if the two of them were mutually damaging each other. Both of them had attributes that countered each other. Silent Wonder, who had many trump cards, would only find it slightly more difficult to win. Soon, Wu Ming's expression turned into a smile. However, this is also the reason why I'm changing my class. That's right. In order to avoid trouble, Wu Ming used the world's power and used Bane of Evil EX to constantly destroy Darius's black mud giant body. Boom! The black mud giant was about to fall apart, and Darius's face was also ugly. While maintaining the world's resistance, he also had to fight against the power that restrained him. It was inevitable for Darius, who had just fused with the black mud giant, to struggle. As if he had guessed his fate, Darius roared in despair. Why? I've spent 1,000 years. Finally, I opened Pandora's box, and I gained supreme power. I gained immortality. Why did you appear? Looking at Darius like this, Wu Ming chuckled. Without me, your plan wouldn't have succeeded. Let's not talk about Gaia, even Alea would have stopped you. Without Wu Ming, Zelik wouldn't have saved the world. Regardless of what happened to the Earth, human beings were doomed to destruction, and Alea, as a human consciousness, must eliminate the scourge that led to the destruction of human beings. In addition, there was another reason why Darius was doomed to fail. For victory, come to me quickly. Immortal son, please give me a shining steed. Horses with enough intelligence, bring me the light wheel that symbolizes your master. Fear the one with wings. Evil people and powerful people are all afraid of me with wings. My wings will bring you a curse. Evil people won't be able to hit me. Wuming condensed a sun in his palm and slammed the small condensed sun into the black mud giant's chest at lightning speed. Boom! Instantly, the black clay giant's chest exploded. What was revealed wasn't a hole, but Erica, or Pandora. At this moment, Pandora was wearing a thin black dress, with long hair like a noble lady. Her eyes were closed, and her hands were hugging her legs. But strangely, Pandora's body was constantly emitting light, which was the hope that restrained all the disasters in Pandora's box. Now, do you understand, Darius? The Pandora's box that released all the disasters is only left with hope, the hope to save humanity. Chapter 305. As if responding to Wuming's words, Pandora responded to my body and emitted some strange light. The light wrapped around the black mud giant, and the black mud giant made a sound. How is this possible? A mere box is actually my nemesis. I have been planning this for 1,000 years. 1,000 years. I can't accept this. I can't accept this. Darius roared madly, like the last roar of a trapped beast before its death. It was so miserable that it made people sympathize with him. Being suppressed by the world, his body was basically composed of the disaster in Pandora's box, suppressed by the hope in Pandora's box. At present, the only thing that could work was Wuming's source power. Why do you think Pandora's box appeared? Crisis and hope coexist. Now, take this despair back to the source. For victory, come to me. Immortal son, please give me a shining steed. O spirited horse, with the lifeline of my origin dragon, I bestow upon the eternal glory. Bring me the wheel of light that symbolizes me. On the stone plate in Wuming's heart, two simple pointers pointed to the stone plate with the sun. With the stone plate emitting a red light, the immortal sun attached to Wuming's body. The sun incarnation not only had the ability to summon the sun, but also the ability to turn Wuming himself into the sun. Wuming used the sun incarnation attached to his body, ignited an endless golden sun flame, and burned the black mud giant. Darius may have made a mournful scream, but Wuming's ears were filled with the sound of burning flames, and there was no room for other sounds. Accompanied by the burning flames, countless rays of the sun blocked everything, and by the way, it set off a solar storm. The solar storm blew the Shua Moon Temple in the distance, but soon, the Shua Moon Temple stabilized. All the people in the Shua Moon Temple were in disarray. Rin stood up, patted her skirt, and looked at everyone. Is everyone all right? Ilya rubbed her head in a daze and looked at Mei Yu who was supporting her, as well as Blackie who was being supported by Sakura Madu. She smiled embarrassedly. He's fine. Probably. Seriously, what on earth did Wuming do? Luvia grumbled. Making a lady fall was not something a gentleman would do, let alone Wuming. Look at the screen. Bizette pointed at the screen that was originally used to communicate with Wuming. At this moment, the screen had turned white. The people in the lunar temple looked at the screen that had turned white and felt the violent tremors just now. They fell into deep shock. Then, the virtual screen dimmed like a TV that had its power cut off. This should be Big Brother's magic power messing up the screen's magic power reception. I'm afraid that Big Brother's surroundings have become unsuitable for modern people to live in a magic power environment. No matter what, Shiro Amiya was someone who had received special training in the clock tower. He was able to analyze this phenomenon. At this moment, Ilya spoke carefully. Big Brother. 1. Ilya was not the only one. Almost everyone present was paying attention to Wuming's situation. Although everyone believed in Wuming's strength very much, at this moment where the outcome could not be determined, everyone's mood was still very uneasy. This was especially so for Mei Yu. At this moment, Mei Yu's expression had turned very pale due to worry. Master has won. There's no doubt about it. Colossus' cold voice sounded. It was unusually simple and clear. However, everyone felt that this voice was filled with joy. Colossus' words caused everyone to sigh in relief. Mayo's helpless expression turned warm. Then, can't we immediately go to Big Brother's side? Ilya asked. After all, Shiro Amiya had already said that Wuming's surroundings might have become unsuitable for modern people to live in. The lunar temple can adapt to almost any environment. As long as you don't go out, you won't be affected, Colossus explained. Then, everyone looked at each other and nodded. Then, as the captain of the lunar temple, I'll go to the big crater at full speed in the name of the lunar temple, Rin Enbin said in a pretentious manner. Surprisingly, Luvia did not refute Rin Enbin this time. Well, I'll let you be in the limelight. In the corner, Beatrice hugged her legs in fear. Her face was buried between her legs as she sat on the ground. Because the impact of the solar storm just now happened to wake Beatrice up. It seemed that because she did not have a rank card, Beatrice appeared to be quite weak at the moment. Angelica stood where she was as obedient as ever. Even the solar storm just now had not been able to make this puppet, who had mastered displacement magic, lose her composure. Angelica looked at the excitement and joy on everyone's faces. She couldn't wait to meet Wuming and closed her eyes. So boring, Angelica said softly. However, this sentence was full of envy. In the big crater, the light that almost covered the entire Winterwood city dissipated, revealing a scene that looked like it had been scorched by the sun. Yes, there was no magma everywhere, nor was there a piece of the earth dug out. It was just the scene of the earth being scorched by the sun for a long time. The only difference was that the originally pitch-black mud had completely disappeared. Wuming stood in the big crater with a person in his arms and another person lying next to him. Erica, who was in Wuming's arms, seemed to have fallen asleep. She lay in Wuming's arms peacefully. Her little head moved unconsciously, and vague sounds came from her mouth. Erica, or rather Pandora, because the countless disasters in Pandora's box had left the box and merged with Darius. Therefore, Pandora could be said to be completely harmless. Because there was no need to kill her, Wuming saved her. After all, she was a great hero who helped Wuming defeat Darius. As for the person lying next to Wuming, if Shiro Amiya was here, he would be very shocked. The person lying next to Wuming was Julian Ainsworth. Logically speaking, it was impossible for Julian, who had been completely replaced by Darius, to reappear. However, because his soul had fused with the black mud, Darius had left Julian's body. Julian, who was originally unconscious in the black mud, was discovered when Wuming defeated Darius. Thinking that it was easy, Wuming saved Julian. As for why Erica was in his arms, and Julian was lying down, Wuming expressed that Julian was a big man, and it was not as comfortable as Erica, who was a little girl. This is... Julian opened his eyes slowly. Because the sun was too bright, Julian subconsciously used his hand to block the sunlight. You're awake. Wuming's voice came from the side. Hearing Wuming's voice, Julian's pupils shrank. Chapter 306. Julian's eyes were a little shocked, but he soon recovered. Darius was defeated, Julian said calmly. From his voice, Wuming could feel a trace of hope. Ah yes, including the soul, he was completely defeated. Wuming turned his head to look in the direction of the sun and said with a smile. The suppression of the world, the hope in Pandora's box, and Wuming's source power combined these three forces. Darius's wish was completely shattered. Darius and the black mud were all burned clean by Wuming's sun. Why did you save me? Suddenly, Julian asked. I didn't want to save you. You saved yourself, Wuming retorted. If it were someone else, even if I killed Darius, his original personality would not reappear. Although Darius said that you have been completely replaced by him, from the looks of it, you should have resisted Darius's replacement magic with your strong spirit. Wuming turned his head to look at Julian. Julian was silent, which meant that he acquiesced. I've done a little research on the Ainsworth family's replacement magic. It's already shocking for an average person to be able to hold on for more than 10 days without being completely replaced. You actually managed to hold on for years with your own willpower. It's really rare. Because Darius set the replacement magic on his descendants, Darius would start to replace the personality of a random person in each generation every time after a certain period of time, making himself immortal in a sense. Because this was a curse engraved in the soul, many descendants of Ainsworth had no way to come into contact with it. It must be said that Darius's replacement magic was really powerful. Each replacement only took a few days, and the replaced personality would become Darius, who retained his previous memories. Julian, who could continue to not be replaced, could be said to have extremely strong willpower. You can now live without any direction. Darius will no longer switch to your body. Now, Darius, whose soul and personality had fused with the black mud, was mentally destroyed by Wuming. Even if the curse was still engraved in Aria's soul, the curse would break on its own without the crucial replacement. After Wuming finished speaking, Julian fell silent. "Thank you, Hyunryong." Then, Julian thanked Wuming in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing. "So, is there anything you want to do as the head of the Ainsworth family that is free from Darius' control?" Wuming suddenly said. "You have been hostile to Erica from the beginning. Although I don't know why you are so against Erica, for the sake of the future, please tell me the reason," Wuming said in a tone that brooked no refusal, and then looked at Julian coldly. Julian glared back at Wuming, not to be outdone. It had to be said that Julian was indeed a ruthless person who could resist Darius without being replaced. "This is the cause of all the disasters of the Ainsworth family. Keeping her is also a disaster," Julian said with an unhappy expression. "But no matter what, she is still your sister, isn't she?" Wuming did not believe that Julian would not have any sibling feelings for Erica. At this point, Julian fell silent. Wuming chuckled when he saw this, then said, "You don't have to worry about Pandora's box. Darius and the calamities in Pandora's box have all been wiped out by me. Even the hope left in Pandora's box has been exhausted in the final battle just now. Right now, Pandora's box is already empty." Wuming looked at Erica in his arms after saying that. "The gods that have disappeared can no longer place disasters and hope in it. You should take up the responsibility of an older brother." With that, Wuming waited for Julian's reply. After hearing Wuming's words, Julian looked at Erica in Wuming's arms and fell into deep thought. However, no matter what, Julian was not a bad person. Otherwise, Shiro Amiya would not have become friends with him. Soon, Julian figured it out. "I understand, Hyunryong." Julian nodded at Wuming. Then, he took the sleeping Erica from Wuming's arms. Wuming was not worried that Julian would lie to him. A person like Julian would not stoop to lying to Wuming in order to kill Erica. This was a matter of principle. Julian carried Erica and walked out of the crater. After taking a few steps, Julian turned his head and looked at Wuming. "I will contact the clock tower to explain. By the way, I will be responsible for repairing this crater. Leave the clock tower to me. You can be an ordinary high school student." Wuming waved his hand. Then, Wuming laughed mischievously. "By the way, you have been absent from school for a long time for no reason. Do you need me to contact the school for you? I have some power in Winterwood City." As soon as Wuming said that, Julian's face darkened. He turned and left. Just like that, Wuming watched as Julian left the crater and entered the forest at the edge of the crater. At this moment, a virtual screen suddenly appeared beside Wuming. "Great, Wuming. I finally got in touch with you." Rin Enbin on the other side of the screen heaved a sigh of relief. Because they had managed to contact Wuming, the three little Lolas were a little excited. They made a fuss on the other side of the screen, causing the screen to be a little abnormal. After hearing Rin Enbin's words, Wuming realized the problem. Because of the sudden increase in the concentration of mana around the crater and the distance between them, the lunar temple's signal could not reach Wuming for a while. When the lunar temple arrived near the crater, they finally managed to contact Wuming. As for Wuming's position in the crater, the concentration of mana was normal. This was because Erica and Julian were here. Wuming pushed the high-purity mana in the crater out of the crater. Otherwise, Julian would not have been able to talk to Wuming so calmly. *T. Wuming instantly realized that Julian would be eroded by the high-density mana after leaving the crater. Well, think about it. Julian was still fine after being replaced for so long. A little high-density mana shouldn't be a threat to him. Probably. Wuming smiled awkwardly as he thought to himself. Speaking of which, where's that black mud guy? Wuming, did you destroy him? After adjusting the screen, Rin Enbin's face reappeared on the screen. Don't worry. The enemy is completely destroyed. There's no more danger. Wuming smiled. Big brother. Suddenly, Little Black's voice came from afar. Wuming turned around and saw Little Black, Ilya, and Meiyu running toward him in their transformed forms. They were clamoring to see you, so I teleported them down. Rin Enbin smiled awkwardly. Really? Wuming shook his head helplessly. When Meiyu and the others were teleported down, it must have happened when the screen was abnormal. Fortunately, Rin Enbin teleported inside the crater and not outside. Otherwise it would have been dangerous. You sent them down so hastily. Aren't you afraid that the enemy isn't dead yet? Ahahaha. You're here. Rin Enbin also realized this problem and smiled awkwardly. Ignoring Rin Enbin, Wuming turned around and looked at Meiyu and the others running toward them. Big brother. Brother Wuming. Ilya and Meiyu also shouted one after another. Wuming smiled as he squatted down and opened his arms. When they were about to reach Wuming, Meiyu suddenly sped up and instantly overtook Little Black and Ilya. She ran to the front and jumped into Wuming's arms. Ah! Meiyu, how can you do this? Meiyu cheated. Little Black and Ilya pouted as they looked at Meiyu in Wuming's arms. However, the two of them only complained and did not do anything else. Brother Wuming. Thank you. Thank you. Meiyu shed tears of joy as she leaned into Wuming's arms. Silly. You're my sister. You don't have to thank me, Wuming smiled gently as he placed his chin on Meiyu's head and comforted Meiyu. Brother Wuming. I like you the most. The sun shone on the siblings, and Little Black and Ilya saw a beautiful scene. They couldn't recover from their daze for a long time. Chapter 307. Wuming didn't let Rin and Osaka land the lunar temple. Instead, he let Rin and Osaka drive the lunar temple back to the lunar mansion. After expelling all the high-density mana, Wuming brought Meiyu, Ilya, and Blackie back to the lunar mansion. At this time, Shiro Amiya and Sakura Madu were already in the kitchen preparing a celebratory feast. Rin and Osaka and Luvia, on the other hand, looked like they couldn't take it anymore. They were lying on the table, unable to get up. Don't think that the magic workshop of the gods was easy to operate. Without enough life force, there was no way to operate it. Fortunately, the two of them looked like they just ran a marathon and were completely exhausted. By the way, if it wasn't for the large amount of mana that Wuming injected into the lunar temple and the help of Collis, Rin and Osaka and Luvia would have been bedridden for 10 days if they were lucky. If they were lucky, they might have died. After all, the bodies of modern people and kamikaze people were different. Kamikaze people who could adapt to the high-density mana air were much stronger than modern people. Because he didn't want other people to participate, Wuming originally planned to let one of his clones control the lunar temple. Because of this, the lunar temple was designed according to Wuming himself. It was already a big surprise that modern people like Rin and Osaka and Luvia could control it. I feel like we've been tricked by you, Wuming. Luvia said weakly. I feel the same. Rin and Osaka weakly said 2 words and then stopped moving. You two insisted on coming. If I don't give you some work to do, it would be rude of me. Wuming smiled as he replied to Rin and Osaka and Luvia. However, no matter how you looked at it, Wuming's smile contained a sense of evil. Well, that's good. You two just lie there and don't cause any trouble. Blackie crossed his arms and looked at Rin and Osaka and Luvia with a gloating expression. Damn it. Wait for me to get up, see if I... Then the two of them didn't even have the strength to say anything. Sister Rin and Sister Luvia, are they really okay? As expected of Ilya, she was still worried about the two of them. Don't worry, I've injected them with life-sustaining medicine when they weren't paying attention. Collis suddenly appeared in front of everyone. While speaking, Kelly used her dragon horn as her hand and shook the syringe that had no trace of medicine left. Ahaha! Ilya laughed helplessly. Magic costumes liked stabbing people with syringes. Putting away the syringe, Kelly floated to the front of Wuming and said softly in a voice different from the cold voice she used to talk to others. Master, I'm back. Wuming didn't know where Collis got such information from. After Collis finished speaking, Wuming was stunned. But Wu Ming reacted instantly. He extended his hand. Welcome back, Collis. Also, you've worked hard. Collis flew to his hand. Wu Ming put Collis on his head. Although Collis didn't say anything, Wu Ming had a feeling that Collis was happy. I'm going to cook. Since the two of you are like this, you won't be able to eat my cooking. What a pity. Otherwise I won't cook. As soon as Wu Ming said this, Rin Enbin and Livia seemed to have regained their senses before death as they abruptly climbed up. Wait! No matter what, we're the ones who contributed. It's not too much to ask for a meal in return. After all, it's the result of your hard work. You should at least try it. Rin and Osaka and Livia spoke rather elegantly. They didn't look like they were half dead from lying on the table a moment ago. May you, Lil Hei, and Ilya smiled awkwardly. By the way, I'm also looking forward to Big Brother's cooking, Ilya smiled sweetly. Aha, I agree, Lil Hei said. Brother Wu Ming. Mei Yu looked at Wu Ming with anticipation. Yes, I'll cook when I get back. You guys look forward to it. Bazette, take care of them, Wu Ming said to Bazette who was sitting on the sofa. Bazette looked like the sky was falling. To be honest, she wasn't good at dealing with children. But in order to pay for her trip home, Bazette nodded. Yes. Then, Wu Ming looked at Angelica and Beatrice who hadn't said anything. You two come with me, Wu Ming said calmly. Then, he walked out of the room. Angelica followed them obediently, but Beatrice looked scared. Beatrice had no choice but to follow him. Leaving behind the dumbfounded Mei Yu, Ilya, Lil Hei, and Rin Enbin and Livia who were half dead again. When they came to the courtyard, Wu Ming stopped and turned to look at the two. I'm not a bad person. You don't have to be so scared. Wu Ming looked at the scared Beatrice and said, Yes. Beatrice replied stutteringly. After a pause, Wu Ming said, I want to tell you two things. The first thing is that Darius is dead. As soon as he finished, Angelica and Beatrice's eyes suddenly shrank. Obviously, they couldn't believe this sentence. Looking at the two's disbelieving eyes, Wu Ming continued. Don't doubt it. I've already wiped him out completely. In other words, you're all free now. Angelica and Beatrice came back to their senses and believed this conclusion for the time being. Then did Master Julian also? Beatrice asked softly. This is the second thing I want to say. I saved Julian. After Wu Ming finished speaking, he began to observe the expressions of the two. Beatrice had a great expression. From her eyes, Wu Ming could see that Beatrice had special feelings for Julian. Angelica, on the other hand, still looked indifferent. Then, what I want to ask is, do you want to return to Julian, the current head of Ainsworth, or do you want to leave Ainsworth and start a new life, or do you want to leave this body of a puppet? Although both of them were puppets and dead people, Wu Ming didn't feel that they couldn't live a new life as puppets. Playing with souls was something that Wu Ming was ashamed of, but for people who had returned to the ground and weren't unforgivable, Wu Ming would still let them choose their own future. Life or death, it was up to them. Chapter 308. I want to go back to Julian. Sama. Beatrice said eagerly. Wu Ming thought it was quite rare. It seemed to be the first time Beatrice dared to speak loudly to Wu Ming. Wu Ming nodded. Of course, I can help you contact Julian, or you can find him yourself, but Julian is definitely not in Ainsworth Castle in Winterwood City. Even if you want to find him, you may not be able to find him. I advise you to stay here first. Wu Ming checked Ainsworth Castle. Because of Darius' death, the whole castle turned into rocks. It turned out that Ainsworth Castle was the result of Darius using displacement magic to replace the Rocky Mountain. As soon as Darius died, Ainsworth Castle naturally changed back to its original appearance. As Wu Ming said, Julian would not go back there. Moreover, although Beatrice could leave alone, Beatrice may not be able to find Julian. After all, Beatrice no longer had a class card, and she could not protect herself in the face of danger. As a result, Wu Ming felt a little guilty for letting a little girl wander around. Wu Ming would not return the class card to Beatrice. Not to mention that Beatrice had used the class card for a long time. Her spirit and personality were somewhat abnormal. If he returned the class card to Beatrice, it was hard to guarantee that Beatrice would not hurt people. Therefore, Wuming suggested that Beatrice stay in Shua Yu's house for the time being, waiting for Wuming's help to find Julian. Wuming already knew the real name of the Berserker class card used by Beatrice. It was Magin, the eldest son of Thor in Norse mythology, the god of strength in Norse mythology. The giant hammer Beatrice used when she used Dream Summon in Stall was indeed Mjolnir, the weapon of Thor, the strongest god in Northern Europe. In Norse mythology, after Thor and Jormungandr died together, Thor's Mjolnir and Thor's divine title were inherited by Thor's eldest son, Mani, and second son, Modi. Through this point, Berserker Mani's card had all of Thor's divinity and the right to use Mjolnir. The reason why Beatrice did not die after being hit by Shiro Amiya was because of her inherent skill, Dusk Survivor. When she was judged to be dead, Thor's divine core would replace her, but at the same time, she lost the right to use Mjolnir and became the god of strength. If it was just Mani the Hercules, she had no special skills. Well, okay then, Beatrice said weakly. What about you, Angelica? What is your choice? Wuming looked at Angelica and asked directly. I'm an abandoned puppet, and now my master is you. I won't go to Julian. Angelica said without hesitation. Hearing Angelica's words, Beatrice wanted to say something, but because of Wuming's presence, Beatrice didn't dare to speak. When did I become your master? Wuming said helplessly. From the moment you picked me up, you are my master. Angelica's eyes were emotionless. Seeing this, Wuming frowned. Displacement magic was really cruel. Wuming also investigated Angelica. She was originally the eldest daughter of this generation of the Ainsworth family, Julian Ainsworth's elder sister, Angelica Ainsworth. She died 6 years ago when the Black Mud caused the Winterwood City crater disaster and was resurrected by Julian, or Darius, with the displacement magic. The displacement magic had this drawback, that was, the person who was resurrected by the displacement magic would lose some things such as memories and emotions. What Beatrice lost was her love for Julian, but with her own efforts, she fell in love with Julian again in the past 6 years. Angelica, on the other hand, had lost her feelings. A puppet without feelings was a complete prop. Angelica was such an existence. Angelica, who had lost her feelings, defined herself as a puppet. Therefore, even if she knew that Julian was her younger brother, Angelica still called Julian Lord Julian and not her younger brother because she had no feelings for him. Then you can stay and be a maid in the Shua Yu residence. Wuming did not know what to do with Angelica, who had no feelings for him. Human feelings were the most difficult to understand, and Wuming could do nothing about Angelica, who had lost the most difficult thing to understand. Wait until I find Julian and see if there is any way to restore Angelica. In fact, Wuming had another way to deal with Angelica, which was to give Angelica to Julian. However, this was not in line with Wuming's own principles. Wuming would not treat humans as objects. This was the choice of Wuming, who had turned from a human into a dragon. Humans were the most priceless treasures. Yes, Lord Wuming. With that, Angelica walked away. Needless to say, she must be carrying out her duties as a maid. Beatrice looked at Angelica, who walked away alone. Facing Wuming alone was enough to scare her. You should go back first. Remember to find a room for yourself. As soon as Wuming finished speaking, Beatrice ran away as fast as she could. Am I that scary? After temporarily solving the problem of Angelica and Beatrice, Wuming joined the kitchen and prepared the meal for the Shua Yu residents with Shiro Amiya and Sakura Madu. At the dining table, Wuming was still sitting at the head of the table. Little Black and Mei Yu sat on the left and right sides of Wuming respectively. Iria sat beside Mei Yu, and below them were Sakura Madu and Shiro Amiya. Below Little Black's row were Bazet, who looked calm, and Rin Enosaka and Luvia, who looked at Shiro Amiya and Sakura Madu with sad eyes. Angelica, on the other hand, used her status as a maid to reject Wuming and the others' invitation. Beatrice, on the other hand, chose a room and hid in it alone. When Tong Ying went to call her, Beatrice said that she was not hungry and would not eat. However, in Wuming's opinion, Beatrice was mainly because of Wuming's presence. However, this was also good. After all, tonight's banquet was held to celebrate defeating Ainsworth. The two of them were prisoners of war, but they were invited to the banquet where they defeated him. It was a little strange. Speaking of which, where did Gil Kuan go? Iria looked at the empty seat opposite Wuming and asked curiously. Don't worry about him. Children will know to go home when they are hungry. Wu-ming waved his hand casually. At that moment, the door opened. I'm starving. Looks like I'm not late. Dinner has just started. Gil's voice came. Chapter 309. Gil sat across Wu-ming and looked at the delicious food in front of him happily. Ever since Wu-ming started fighting with Darius, Wu-ming noticed that Gil was missing. Although he did not know why Gil only came back now, he decided to ask that question after dinner. The most important thing now was to have a happy dinner. Alright, since everyone is here, let the celebration officially begin. Wu-ming raised his glass and announced the start of the banquet. Everyone raised their glasses. Of course, Ilya, Mei Yu, and Xiao Hei's glasses were filled with fruit juice. As for Rin and Osaka, Luvia, Shiro Amiya, and Sakura Madu who were still underage, naturally, they drank fruit juice. As for young Gil, Wu-ming naturally prepared fruit juice for him since he had an underage face. However, that did not make young Gil unhappy. After all, young Gil's temper was the best that Wu-ming had ever seen. It seemed like only Bizet who was already an adult and Wu-ming who was already an adult. He was definitely less than 100 years old. 50 would be too much. Had wine in their glasses. By the way, the wine was provided by young Gil out of friendship. The wine that Bizet drank was diluted. If an ordinary person drank too much of the wine of God, they would die. Cheers! Everyone said in unison. Wu-ming finished the god's wine in the cup in one gulp and exhaled happily. This wine is still the best, Wu-ming said happily and poured himself another glass. It seems like Sensei hasn't drunk for a long time. You really liked this wine when you were in Uruk. Young Gil took a sip of his drink and took out a few bottles of the wine of God from the gate of Babylon and tossed them to Wu-ming. Wu-ming caught the god's wine and kept it in his precious artifact. Even I sometimes envy you, Gil. Wu-ming joked. Wu-ming was naturally referring to Gil's gate of Babylon. Young Gil had already retrieved his rank card. Although he didn't know why he didn't use it and kept it as it was, he had already taken back control of the gate of Babylon. That was why young Gil could give Wu-ming a few bottles of God's wine without a care. The reason why Wu-ming, who possessed the Manchala phalanx, said so was because the items that Wu-ming and Gil possessed were different. The last king was given the mission to kill all of the god slayers. Each time Rama killed all of the god slayers, the gods would give Rama many weapons. As time went by, almost all of the god relics were stored in the Manchala formation. However, these god relics were basically offensive. After all, one couldn't just give a warrior a bottle of wine and ask him to fight a battle. Therefore, the god relics that the gods gave Rama were mostly weapons. However, Gil's Gate of Babylon was different. The Gate of Babylon contained 2/3 of the treasures in the world. Although it was only 2/3, most of the treasures were in Gil's treasure vault. As for the definition of treasures, as long as Gil recognized something as valuable as a treasure, it would be collected by him. In other words, it wasn't just weapons. Countless non-weapon treasures were also collected by the Gate of Babylon. Although Wu-ming did not like drinking, it would be great if there was good wine. If it's master, you can still get it if you want to drink, can't you? Young Gil smiled. Wu-ming smiled too. Young Gil was right. The meaning of this was that Wu-ming could go to other worlds. Unknown worlds represented unknown treasures. Moreover, with the support of his origin, it could be said that to a certain extent, Wu-ming could indeed get whatever he wanted. That's great. I'd like to try the god's wine too. Xiao Hei looked at Wu-ming with a smile. No. Xiao Hei, you're not an adult yet. Even Sister Lin and the rest drink. You should just give me a drink. Ilya, who was sitting diagonally opposite Xiao Hei, looked at Xiao Hei angrily. Ilya was not angry because Xiao Hei wanted to drink. Instead, it was because Xiao Hei was sitting in the seat that Ilya wanted to sit in. It was natural for Mei Yu to sit beside Wu-ming. On the other side, Xiao Hei tricked Ilya into sitting in the seat beside Wu-ming. That was why Ilya was so angry. Ma, what does it matter? Nothing will happen if you only drink a little. Xiao Hei naturally knew why Ilya was so angry. After hearing Ilya's retort, Xiao Hei hugged Wu-ming's arm and rubbed against it. Then, he looked at Ilya proudly. You let go of me. Ilya's face instantly turned red and she stuttered. Although she had experienced Xiao Hei's bold actions many times, the thin-skinned Ilya was still very embarrassed. Ilya, calm down. Mei Yu comforted Ilya, whose face was red from anger and embarrassment. Cold sweat trickled down her forehead. Wu Ming lightly knocked Xiao Hei's head and said with a slightly stern tone, "All right, eat properly. Stop messing around." "Woo-woo, big brother hit me. I'm so sad." Xiao Hei, who was knocked on the head, instantly made a heartbroken expression and looked pitifully at Wu Ming. Wu Ming helplessly shook his head. Then, Wu Ming used Xiao Hei's spoon to scoop up some food and brought it to Xiao Hei's mouth. "Come on," Wu Ming looked at Xiao Hei and said, "Ah, ah, ah." Not only Ilya, but even Mei You's face turned red. The two of them let out strange cries. Xiao Hei was also surprised. But he instantly reacted. Xiao Hei let out an "ah" sound and swallowed the food that Wu Ming fed him in one gulp. The food that big brother fed me personally is really delicious." Xiao Hei even licked the corner of his mouth. Wu Ming shook his head and put down Xiao Hei's spoon. Wu Ming picked up Ilya's and Mei You's spoons and made a feeding action for them. "Come on, everyone has a share." Wu Ming smiled. However, Ilya and Mei Yu were a little shy. Slowly, Mei Yu ate first. Mei Yu gently ate the food that Wu Ming fed her. Her face was extremely red. "But it's delicious," Mei Yu said. "Ilya, if you're not going to eat it, I'll have to do it for you." Xiao Hei looked at Ilya, who did not eat for a long time, and made a threat. "Don't even think about it." Ilya instantly pouted. With an "ah," she swallowed the food that Wu Ming fed her. Wu Ming put down their spoons and said to the three of them, "All right, eat properly." When Sakura Madu saw this scene, she felt that it was very novel. Then, she did the same thing to Shiro Amiya. "Come on, senpai." Sakura Madu looked at Shiro Amiya with blushing cheeks. It must be said that Sakura Madu was a very shy person. She was bold to do such a thing to Shiro Amiya in front of so many people. "Sakura!" Shiro Amiya scratched his face in embarrassment. However, in the end, he still swallowed the food that Sakura Madu fed him. Rip! Suddenly, the sound of cloth being torn was heard. Rin and Osaka and Luvia smiled elegantly. The tablecloth in front of them was torn in half. "You guys continue." Nothing happened. Rin and Osaka and Luvia continued to smile. Shiro Amiya felt that it was better for him to not ask any more questions. Meanwhile, Bazette, who was eating delicacies by himself, wiped his mouth. How boring. Then, he kept moving his knife and chopsticks as he quickly ate the food. There aren't many opportunities to eat for free. I must grab hold of them, he thought to himself. Laughter kept coming out of the Shuasuki residence. The moon seemed to be infected by the laughter. The moonlight was especially clear and bright as it illuminated the Shuasuki residence. Chapter 3:10. It was a beautiful day with no clouds for thousands of miles. The sun shone on the earth, covering everything on the earth with a layer of brilliance. Wu Ming held a small black box in his hand and sat under the sun with his eyes closed. Now, a week had passed since the last battle between Wu Ming and Darius. After the celebration banquet a week ago, Wu Ming went to find Julian the next day. Wu Ming found Julian easily. To Wu Ming's surprise, Julian rebuilt a house in the forest near Winterwood City. Although it was not as big as the previous Ainsworth Castle, it could be regarded as a small villa. Coincidentally, the forest where Julian built his villa was close to the Shuayue mansion. After all, the original address of the Shuayue mansion was the Weigong mansion, and the Weigong mansion was built on the land that Weigong Jishi bought on the edge of Fuyuki City. In this way, Wu Ming and Julian could be said to have become neighbors. Naturally, the fact that the two became neighbors could not be hidden from Shiro Amiya. After Shiro Amiya learned that Julian was fine and had escaped the fate of the Ainsworth family, he ran to Julian excitedly to catch up. Although Julian still hated Shiro Amiya very much, Julian still cherished this rare friendship. Shiro Amiya even stayed at Julian's house that night. This made Sakura Madu quite worried. After all, Julian and Shiro Amiya both lived together. Julian was a great enemy for Sakura Madu. Ahem, just kidding. After that, Wu-ming told Beatrice about Julian's situation and couldn't wait to find Julian. Julian also let Beatrice live with him for the time being with the guilty mentality of, after all, I used her. This made Beatrice happy for a long time. It was said that Beatrice had prepared more than a dozen night attack plans. Ahem. On the other hand, Julian was at a loss when it came to his elder sister, Angelica. Although Angelica had died a long time ago, and Julian also regarded Angelica as a puppet with his sister's skin during this time, Angelica was still his sister. This puppet had his sister's personality attached to it. Julian gave the strongest Gilgamesh card to Angelica. From this point, it could be seen that Julian still had a sibling relationship with Angelica. Since she has become your maid, let her stay in your house for now. That was what Julian meant. Just like that, Angelica became an official maid of the Shuayu residence. And the black square box in Wu-ming's hand was Pandora's box. All along, Pandora's box had been hidden by Darius at the top of Ainsworth Castle. But even so, Erica was still connected to Pandora's box. Erica, on the other hand, created Pandora and Pandora's box because the gods wanted to bestow disaster upon humans. It could be said that Pandora's true form was Pandora's box. It could be understood that the Holy Grail produced a personality and body. She was Mei Yu. Pandora's box produced a body and personality independent of the box, and that was Erica. Although she wasn't inseparable from the Holy Grail like Mei Yu, Erica was still connected to Pandora's box. This Pandora's box was given to Wu-ming by Julian when he met him again. This box is no longer empty. But even so, I think it should be of some use to you. At that time, after Julian finished speaking, Julian didn't wait for Wu-ming's reply and threw Pandora's box to Wu-ming. In the end, Julian added another sentence. This is also Erica's choice. She said that you bring her warmth and you need this. With that, Julian left. Wu-ming was left with a helpless expression. However, Wu-ming really needed Pandora's box. In the courtyard, Wu-ming collected his thoughts and ended his research on Pandora's box for the day. At that moment, Angelica, who had just arrived, walked up to Wu-ming and reported. Lord Wu-ming, the large hole at the edge of Winterwood City has been repaired. Angelica, who was wearing a maid's uniform, said, Thank you for your hard work, Angelica. Wu-ming comforted her. Angelica bowed slightly to return the greeting. After Winterwood City broke away from the Ainsworth family, or rather, Darius's control, Wu-ming successfully took over Winterwood City and became the manager of Winterwood City. Because of the parallel world, although this world had the Enosaka family, there was no Rin Enosaka. Winterwood City had always been managed by the Ainsworth family. Of course, this was the result of Wu-ming's deliberate indulgence. Now, the manager of Winterwood City was the Amiya family. After all, Amiya's identity as Wu-ming still had some influence in Winterwood City in this parallel world. Some of the staff of the clock tower and even the higher-ups of Winterwood City who had connections with magician didn't pay much attention to the change of manager of Winterwood City. From the perspective of the clock tower, it was normal for a small city in the Far East to have a manager change. It was nothing more than a family defeating the original manager, and the original manager's family became a vassal. As long as the new manager was still nominally under the management of the clock tower, there was no problem. Of course, Zelik also played a role in this matter. For the higher-ups of Winterwood City who knew about Magician's World, it didn't matter who the manager was. It was just a change of partners. As for the repair of the large hole in Winterwood City, Wu-ming didn't let Julian undertake it. Within this week, Wu-ming contracted the repair of the large hole in Winterwood City. And the manager of this project was Angelica. Although Angelica didn't have Gilgamesh's class card, her use of replacement magic could be said to be superb. Even a first-rate magician couldn't withstand Angelica's tricks. Therefore, Wu-ming gave this task to Angelica. It had to be said that Angelica was indeed useful as a subordinate. This was because Angelica had been a genius before she died. After she was turned into a puppet, her advantages were revealed. She carried out the task seriously, didn't procrastinate, didn't cut corners, and was capable of doing things. In less than a week, she finished repairing the large hole in Winterwood City. For any lord, this was a valuable subordinate. It was no wonder that Julian and Darius kept using Angelica. Although Wu-ming didn't know why Darius wanted to abandon Angelica, he didn't need to know. Anyway, he was the one who benefited. By the way, Angelica, do you still have a free class card? Wuming suddenly had a thought. Chapter 3:11. Yes. As Angelica spoke, she took out a class card, but there was no image on it. Ainsworth had spent a lot of time experimenting in order to create class cards. These blank class cards were the failed products of his experiments. These failed products didn't have any heroic spirit power. After using the card, it would turn into ashes, and the user wouldn't gain any power. Thank you. Wuming received the class card and thanked her. You're too kind, Lord Wuming. Angelica bowed slightly. A maid isn't a servant. You're worthy of my thanks. After saying that, Wuming left without waiting for Angelica's response. Angelica stood on the spot and pondered for a moment. Then, she got up and bowed slightly in the direction Wuming left in the courtyard where Angelica was the only one left. Yes, Lord Wuming. In the Shuayu residence, Ilya pulled Mei Yu along as they sat in front of the television and watched magical girl dramas. How is it? How is it, Mei Yu? This is good, isn't it? I didn't expect this world to also have magical girl samurai Musashi. Ilya was excited. However, Little Black, who was watching the show out of boredom, had a look of disdain. Seriously, Ilya, you still like these magical girls. You've already become a real magical girl. What's wrong with that? Can't I like watching magical girl dramas just because I've become a magical girl? Ilya retorted with a red face. However, the effect of her rebuttal wasn't that great. Oh ho, as expected of Ilya. You can actually say such things. Little Black looked at Ilya as though it had seen something interesting. Ilya stared back at Little Black with a red face. Her puffed-up cheeks were incomparably adorable. However, the two of them didn't notice that Meiyo's expression was rather gloomy. It disregards the laws of physics and flies at high speed. It's impossible for humans to do this. Meiyu had a look of disbelief. Wuming walked over from behind the three of them and instantly placed his hand on Meiyo's head. Brother Wuming. Meiyu was shocked. She turned around and looked at the person. She only calmed down when she saw Wuming. I've already told you to watch more anime. But you just wouldn't. You just had to watch shows that weren't suitable for children. Wuming smiled dotingly. But don't get me wrong. Programs that are not suitable for children are programs that a large number of graduate students in medicine, biology, and even military science should watch. It was also because of this that Mei Yu became the perfect superhuman that Ilya spoke of. She knew almost everything. Really? Brother Wuming, you're so annoying. Mei Yu blushed as she felt the warmth of Wuming's palm. Big brother. Little Black and Ilya stopped glaring at each other when they saw Wuming. Ilya. Blackie. Wuming greeted the two. Brother Wuming, are you done with your work? It feels like you're very early today. Mei Yu asked with concern. Ever since he obtained Pandora's box, Wuming would conduct research for a period of time every day. The research time was fixed every day. Hence, Wuming, who had completed his research early today, attracted Meiyo's attention. I have some ideas. Don't worry. Wuming patted Meiyo's little head again as he spoke. Speaking of which, where did Bazette go? Wuming asked. He had asked Bazette to look after the three Lolas until Wuming finished his research. But now, Bazette had disappeared. Because I wanted to eat ice cream, I asked Big Sister Bazette to buy it. Ilya smiled embarrassedly. Now that you mention it, I remember that it's still summer in Ilya's world. On the second day after the celebration banquet, Wuming sent Ilya and the others back to the parallel world. Along the way, Wuming also set up teleportation doors at the Shuayu Mansion and Emiya Mansion. Those were the doors that could travel between the two parallel worlds. Rin and Osaka and Luvia had to report on their mission, so they returned to the British clock tower. Bazette stayed behind because he was still considered Wuming's subordinate. Hence, he did not return to Ilya's parallel world. It had to be said that this was a sad story. As for Ilya and Blackie, they came here because the weather there was too hot. Firstly, they were here to look for Mei Yu. Secondly, they were here to relieve themselves from the heat. After all, because this world was once on the verge of extinction, the Earth's axis had shifted a lot. This caused Ilya's world to be in hot summer while Mayo's world was in cold winter. But it seemed that the heavens were happy because Darius was defeated. It didn't snow much in the past few days, and the temperature wasn't that cold anymore. Instead, it was very refreshing. But no matter what, Ilya and Blackie had just come from the hot summer. In addition, Mayu couldn't resist the double temptation of Ilya and Blackie, so Bazette was forced to leave to buy ice cream. Of course, Bazette left through the back door. Wuming was in the front yard. If Bazette left, he would definitely be discovered by Wuming. You three, be careful not to get a stomachache. Wuming helplessly patted their heads one by one as a warning. Ilya and Blackie chuckled. Mayu blushed and lowered her head. Ah, big brother. Have you completed your research? At that moment, Shiro Amiya's voice sounded. They looked toward the source of the voice. Shiro Amiya was wearing travel attire and carrying a large suitcase. He looked at everyone with a smile. Bro. Mr. Shiro, are you going to do something? Ilya asked in puzzlement. Blackie also had a curious look on his face. If it's wrong, he's going to England, Mayu explained. England? Ilya and Blackie were puzzled. It's like this. I'm going to England's clock tower to continue my magic cultivation, Shiro Amiya said with a smile. So sudden? Blackie was a little surprised. After all, they had defeated the final boss and could finally have a good rest. Shiro Amiya was going to cultivate again. I was the one who suggested Shiro go, Wuming said. Big brother suggested it? Ilya and Blackie looked at Wuming. Yes. After all, the manager of Winterwood City is now the Amiya family in name. If Shiro doesn't learn magic well, he won't be able to live up to the manager's name. After Wuming said that, Mayo's eyes dimmed. Moreover, I also gained a lot of things from the clock tower. It would be too heartless to leave them behind. Shiro Amiya touched the back of his head. Also, Sakura will go with Shiro. You don't have to worry. Ainsworth was defeated. Sakura could return home that she didn't dare to return before. Moreover, Sakura Madu went home to sell her property and go to England with Shiro Amiya. As for why she sold her property, she was going to change her name to Amiya Sakura in the future. She didn't leave a way out for herself. By the way, because Shiro was about to leave, Wuming wasn't in a hurry to exchange the Shuoyue mansion and Amiya mansion. The mansion in Mayo's world was still the Shuoyue mansion, and the mansion in Ilya's world was the Amiya mansion. I still have a plane to catch, so I won't chat for now. Goodbye, everyone. After saying goodbye to everyone, Shiro Amiya left the Shuoyue mansion. At this time, Wuming noticed that Mayo's face was a little gloomy. Chapter 3:12. When Wuming said this, Ilya and Little Black also noticed that Mayo's expression was a little abnormal. What's wrong, Mayu? Are you not feeling well? Ilya said worriedly. If you're not feeling well, you must tell us. Little Black also had a concerned expression. Brother Wuming, I originally thought that you let Brother Shiro go to the Time Tower to train himself. Mayu lowered her head, and her bangs blocked Mayo's eyes. Wuming instantly understood. He squatted down and hugged Mayu with both hands. You let Brother Shiro go to the Time Tower to train so that he can take on the important responsibility of Winterwood City's manager. Then what about you? Mayu continued. Ilya and Little Black also thought of something and looked at Wuming. Are you going to leave me again, leave this home? Mayu raised her head and looked at Wuming. Her tears could not stop flowing. Yes, I'm going to leave this place. Wuming did not appear to be panicking. He said very calmly. Big brother? Ilya and Little Black were surprised. But Wuming wiped Mayo's tears and said earnestly, this is something that I have to do. Mayu, forgive me. After saying that, Wuming hugged Mayu in his arms. Ilya and Little Black also fell silent. No matter what, Wuming was a root dragon, a legendary divine dragon. He must have his own mission. I know that this is a mission that Brother Wuming has to do, but... Mayo's dried tears flowed again. But I can't bear to part with you, big brother. Mayo's last big brother was shouted in an extremely loud voice, and it almost penetrated the room. Wuming did not finish his words. Ilya and Little Black continued to maintain their silence. Only Meiyu kept crying. Brother Wuming hugged me for the first time when we first met. Meiyu began to recall. My family is dead, and so is my mother. Although I don't remember them, that sadness still lingered in my heart. At that time, I didn't understand all of this. Wuming hugged Meiyu tightly. It's you, Brother Wuming, who saved me from this sadness. You gave me love, gave me a home, and gave me hope to survive. At that moment, Meiyu looked at the back of her hand. Although Brother Wuming was my servant at that time, I don't feel that Wuming was fulfilling the responsibility of a servant to his master. Then, Meiyu raised her head and looked at Wuming. I feel that Brother Wuming really treated me as a younger sister and took care of me with all his heart. My heart tells me that this feeling is incomparably real. Meiyu pressed her heart and continued to look at Wuming. That's why I chose to become a magical girl. I want to reduce Brother Wuming's burden. I hope that I can help you, and I hope that you don't have to work so hard. Meiyu threw herself into Wuming's arms and did not say anything else. Ilya and Little Black, on the other hand, sensibly did not say anything and waited. I'm sorry, Brother Wuming. I'm too stubborn. I've caused you trouble. Meiyu, who was lying in Wuming's arms, let out an unclear and weak voice. How could that be? Meiyu, you're my younger sister. No matter what, I won't feel that you've caused me trouble. Wuming was still smiling gently as he caressed Meiyu's cheek. It's been hard on you, Meiyu. You must have felt terrible when I left you last time, right? After all, the gentler a person was, the fiercer they would be when they were angry. This was because this anger had accumulated over a long period of time. Meiyu's outburst this time was the same. Making a young girl cry, I'm really a coward, Wuming said self-deprecatingly. No, Brother Wuming isn't a coward, Meiyu immediately retorted. She looked at Wuming with her little face puffed up. Wuming snickered. When Meiyu saw Wuming laughing, even Ilya and Little Black laughed. I'm sorry, Ilya, Meiyu. I've made the two of you worry. Meiyu recovered and said to the two of them. Sigh, really. Meiyu should have vented it out earlier. Little Black waved his hand helplessly. That's right, that's right. If you're unhappy, you should look for your friends and family to confide in. If it were me, I might have run to the park and coincidentally be discovered by my mother. Then, I would have jumped into my mother's arms and cried. Ilya smiled. Little Black looked at Ilya with a displeased expression. Little did she know that Little Black had been like this. Brother Wuming, thank you. Also, there's no need to apologize to your family. Meiyu pointed out the matter of Wuming apologizing to Meiyu just now. Ha ha ha, it's my fault. How does Meiyu want to punish me? Wuming rubbed his head and smiled generously. I want Brother Wuming to promise me that he will definitely be able to solve the problem safely and return to my side safely. As she said this, Meiyu extended her pinky. All right then. I hereby swear that I will definitely be able to solve the problem safely and return to my little sister Meiyu's side safely. As he said this, Wuming also extended his pinky and made a pinky promise with Meiyu. It's a promise. Yep, it's a promise. I also want to make a pinky promise. Ilya said sourly. This is a promise between brother and sister. Why are you joining in the fun? Little Black complained helplessly. I already called Big Brother, Big Brother. No matter what, we can be considered brother and sister. Ilya strongly refuted. According to what you said, I can also be considered as Big Brother's little sister. If Big Brother wants to make a pinky promise, then you can make a pinky promise with all of us. Little Black smiled mischievously. Yes, yes, Wuming bitterly smiled helplessly. However, Wuming still extended his pinky and made a pinky promise with Ilya and Little Black. I hereby swear that I will definitely be able to solve the problem safely and return to my little sister Ilya and Little Black's side safely. Wuming made another oath. Then it's a promise, Big Brother. Ilya and Little Black said in unison. It's a promise. Everyone. Then the four of them laughed. Amidst their laughter, the four of them did not notice that a faint golden light was emitted from their bodies. The golden light instantly disappeared as if it had never happened. Outside the door, Bazette stood there obediently. He did not choose to enter. Bazette was holding a few melted ice creams in his hand. Although the ice creams had already flowed to his hand, Bazette still did not move. Bazette had actually returned a long time ago. When he walked to the door, he heard Mayu call out, "Big brother." Originally, Bazette thought that an accident had occurred and wanted to rush in. However, a second before he was about to make a move, Bazette felt that something was amiss. Thus, he did not break the door open and rush in. For once, Bazette, whose intelligence was online, did not disturb the conversation between these four siblings. Instead, he stayed outside the door. It's a promise? You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.